Let's revise the 1984 Oscars. What should have won the Best Picture, even Best Director? Let's take a look at that in my revision series coming up next. All right, the 1984 Oscars were about the 1983 movies eligible during that year. I use this website. It's very good to show me what could have been voted on by the voters then. That's what I'm going to use. I'm going to have technical limits here where I only use what was eligible, although I'll tell you what was not eligible, which is there's one very good movie here that maybe should have been eligible and maybe would have won Best Picture. Now, of course, a lot of us criticize the Oscars, what should have won, and this year it's no different for me. 1983's movies, here are the 1984 Oscars. Terms of Endearment won. James L. Brooks wrote, directed it. Jack Nicholson, Shirley MacLaine's in it. This is a movie I found interesting and definitely heart-wrenching. You should watch the movie if you want to cry a lot, but I don't think it's anywhere close to the Best Picture. I don't like some of the themes and ideas in it. And overall, here are the Best Picture nominees for the Oscars that year. The Big Chill, The Dresser, The Right Stuff, Tender Mercies. A couple of these are very good. I really like them a lot. But I'm going to completely rework this because here is my draft of the nominees that I would, at least for my first draft, think about choosing as Best Picture nominees. Now, this is a really long list, and I think it's going to be unusual once they do these Oscar videos for the next 40 years up until the present day. It's a really long list. A lot of these movies are really good, really interesting. Even in the worth mentioning section, you can see I've bumped The Right Stuff down there. I never quite loved that movie. Terms of Endearment's down there. Even some of you like Scarface. I know that's one of the favorite movies of people. I'm not going to justify all these choices. Part of this is obviously personal preference and what I look for in a very good movie. But I believe that if you look through that draft of nominees list, most of you, if you watch all those, you'll love half of those movies. Some of them are Criterion, some of them are quirky, some of them are absolutely culturally fascinating, still relevant today as The King of Comedy is. People have found that to be still relevant. And a lot of them are heartbreaking, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's no end to the good movies of this year. To me, though, this is a top-heavy year. I think once you get down to like the 30th best movie of the year, it gets to be not as good. But overall, this is a good year to kind of look at if you're hunting for good movies. And now I'm going to have some problems, a couple of technical problems, because one, nostalgia. This is Tarkovsky's next to last movie. I really love it. I think it's wonderful, even better than Stalker for me. But a lot of people will not like it. It has long takes, almost nothing happens in it. And so for that reason alone, it's going to prove challenging just for about anybody. It was not eligible this year. So if I go by the technical terms of my exercise here, I can't put it on my Best Picture list, but I would think about putting it in my list of nominees. The really troubling one is Fanny and Alexander. That's the great Bergman movie, still watched in Sweden today and other places, but there are two versions. There's a 3-hour version, there's a 5-hour version. Well, the 5-hour version, according to what I read on the internet, came out in 1984. This one came out as eligible, the 3-hour version, the slimmed down version, in 1983. So the voters at this time had the smaller version. I strongly recommend the 5-hour version. It's a ton of time. This is one of the best movies of the 80s, one of the best movies that Bergman made, in my opinion. And yet, if I put the 3-hour version, I feel like I'm shortchanging things. And this is not unlike my problem I had in the previous year with Blade Runner, where I had to do the Blade Runner theatrical release. That's all the voters had versus the Blade Runner director's cuts that came out much later. So I'm not going to put Fanny and Alexander on my final best of nominee list, even though if I had the 5-hour version, that probably would win Best Picture for me. Now, this is an agonizing move. I got to cut this list of movies down to 5 because I'm going to follow they had 5 Best Picture nominees. I don't know what to do. Quite honestly, all of these deserve mention. Silkwood is a really good Mike Nichols movie, a very good historical drama, realistic drama with a great performance by Meryl Streep. Kurt Russell and Cher's in it, about a plutonium plant in Oklahoma. I've discovered this movie. It's great, or there's a lot of great things about it. Rumblefish, Francis Ford Coppola's really artistic experiment that tweaks his movie The Outsiders, based on the S.E. Hinton book, is really remarkable. The score is fascinating by Stuart Copeland, and I must mention this movie. I think Risky Business is a very well written, very well directed movie. The Return of Martin Gare, a very good medieval historical movie with some fascinating cultural issues. All these movies deserve mention. I like The Dresser, The King of Comedy. Oh, the list goes on. But I gotta clip this down to 5, so let's do it. Now here's my list of 5. I had to kick The Dresser off. I've covered that in this on my channel. It is a excellent movie with fantastic acting performances, and I strongly recommend that one, even though it's not on my list of final 5. Let's go through these. The Draughtsman's Contract by Peter Greenaway, his first major movie, and this is an excellent. Ebert called it a crossword puzzle of a movie. And just an excellent murder mystery, historical drama. It takes Kubrick's Barry Lyndon to the extreme. This one can be studied ad infinitum, watched 100 times. It's really, really fascinating, interesting, but a dark, dark movie in my opinion. Speaking of dark movies, we got a couple more on here. The King of Comedy. And this is Scorsese's probably one of his more biting social commentaries, and with the Robert De Niro performance, dealing with talk shows. Now, you'll have to know what a TV talk show is and how significant they were in the early 1980s, a la Johnny Carson, for example. If you know that, well, then you're all good. And I think this movie transfers into the modern day with YouTube and TikTok and everything else that is social media. This is a very good movie. I think it was misunderstood in its time, and it deserves high praise here in the Best Picture nominee list. Local Hero, great Bill Forsyth movie. Criterion has redesigned the cover. It's fantastic. There's no villain in this movie. It's a Cold War movie. It reverses all kinds of cliches about big city people coming to small towns. If you were to make a movie about big city people coming to small towns, I would stumble into all the cliches that have been made 100,000 times, and this movie somehow manages to avoid every single one of them and have fun with them. I love this movie, and it's going to be probably my choice for Best Picture, although I don't know yet. Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. Oh my goodness, this is a fantastic movie in the Criterion Collection. A great prison camp movie. David Bowie stars. It's actually hard to describe this movie entirely in like 30 seconds, so I'm not going to do it. Just go look it up. But it is a fascinating East meets West movie, World War II prison camp. So one of my favorite prison camp movies. Go check out my prison camp movie video where I rank all these movies. This one's at the top of that list, or near the top of it. Last, I'm preserving an original Best Picture nominee from this year, Tender Mercies. I love the Robert Duvall performance, Bruce Beresford. This is another movie like Local Hero that reverses cliches of a drunk, formerly famous country singer who wakes up and is with a family. He's trying to recover his life, and there's a lot of things that go on in this movie that I find fascinating. It does have, oh boy, I'm going to rag on it, 70s, 80s country music, a little bit simplistic, but Robert Duvall is great at singing in this. It's one of the best acting performances of the year for sure. So I'm putting it on the list. I love this movie. I covered it as well on this channel. Probably if I'm going to rank these movies, the middle 3 in these lists are going to be the top 3. And so what I'm going to pick for Best Picture, this is a tricky choice. I'll say it again. I wanted to pick Fanny and Alexander. That's probably the one I would pick if the 5-hour version were available. But here is my Best Picture revision choice.
And the winner is
Will Forsyth's Local Hero. I know that most people probably wouldn't pick this. It's a personal choice. I've always loved this movie. I'm from a small town, lived in big cities. I find this movie to be insightful, interesting about local culture, about the Cold War itself. I love movies with no villains. It's a tremendous challenge for anybody to write a story, make a movie with no villain. This does it super well. And it has this sort of mythical quality to it, this sort of fantasy quality in a real setting. It's about a small town on the coast of Scotland, and this big city oil guy comes to it. Burt Lancaster's fantastic in this. I could just go on about it. I could watch this movie once a year and be reinvigorated. My spirits will be lifted and give me a new vision for life. So I love this movie, although the other ones in this list are fantastic too. Now, given all we said here, what the heck would you pick? What would be your Best Picture nominee? Make a case for The Right Stuff, please. I've never appreciated that movie. That book is one of my favorite books ever, so maybe that's my problem with it. I know Siskel and Ebert loved that movie and put it at the top of their list for this year. I just have never gotten into it, so it's not up here on my best of list. But make a case, and for any of these other movies, what would you choose as the Best Picture of this year? By the way, should I give Best Director? I can't. I have no idea. I'm probably going to give it to Bergman for Fanny and Alexander, the 3-hour version. That's what I would do, but there are like 10 to 15 directors here, and who can choose among artists, great artists making great artworks? I can't. Bergman, Peter Weir, Bruce Beresford, Francis Ford Coppola, etc., etc. So, Tarkovsky. Let's give it to Tarkovsky. Okay, so Bill Forsyth could win because he got Local Hero. This is an impossible choice. What would you do? Let us know in the comments. Please subscribe to this channel for more great content. And check out my other Oscar revisionism videos, which is a ton of work, but a ton of fun to put together. Have a great day.